Now that we have a table, let's add some pagination so we're not displaying all the data at once. The goal of this video is to limit what we see to about 5 or 10 products at a time, and we'll use the Angular Material Paginator to do that. Let's dive into the documentation. Under the table component in the Overview tab, there's a really good example on implementing the pagination within our table. And you can find that under the features and select the pagination link. And here it shows us how we can implement the MatPaginator within our table. If we look at this code example and check out the TypeScript, here we're going to be using this MatPaginator module to implement pagination within our table. Notice that this MatPaginator module does not come from the Angular material table. It comes from its own component. So using this MatPaginator module is not limited to just tables. If we check out the Paginator component, you can find that under this link here. Or within the menu, you could find the Paginator here. I already have it open under a new tab. For now, we'll focus on just implementing this Paginator without the functionality first. In the code example, the first thing we'll need to do is we'll need to bring in the module. I'll copy this. Back in our TypeScript file, like we've done many times before, we'll bring in our module, the MatPaginator module in this case. And then also make sure to bring it within our components and inside of the imports array. I'll add that towards the end. We'll come back to this file in this video, but this is the only changes we need to make for now just to implement the paginator. Now we'll update the HTML. Within here, within our table towards the end here, I'll add in another snippet from the documentation using the MatPaginator. When we use this MatPaginator, we could set some configurations like the length, the total number of items. We'll set this to 15. The page size, we'll leave this as 10, and this is the default number of items per page. Page options, the options the user can choose from, and we'll use 5 and 10, and we'll remove 25 and 100 since we don't have that many products. And this is all we need to do to see it in the browser. However, it won't work with our table, but we'll test it in the browser. Now, if we scroll all the way to the bottom of our table, we'll see the paginator, and we have an option of 5 and 10 as we set it. And the length, we set that to 15, and we can see that here. And we set the page size to 10. Now you'll notice if you change it to, let's say 5, this does not update. We don't yet have it connected to our table yet. Let's set that up next. If we go back to the documentation again, and back within our table component, within the example that they provide, next we'll bring in the MatPaginator. This class provides the controls for the user to switch pages. And this class is being brought in from Angular Material Paginator. We'll also be setting up the mat table data source. And this will allow us to handle things like filtering, sorting, pagination for our table. We'll bring in this entire example here to get us started. Within our component, I'll add that entire example. And the first line from the example is the displayed columns. This is the string or the array of columns that we have. We set that up in a prior video. We called it columns to display. So we don't need this. We already have this one set up. We can remove this. The next example is the data source, and we'll need to update our data source. In the last video, we set it up to be an array of products. Now we're going to set this data source to be an instance of the mat table data source. This will give us access to the paginator property. To use this, we'll need to bring it in from Angular Material Table. And we'll set the type to product. And then here we'll pass in the data. That sets up the data source. We could get rid of the first one now. Don't need that one anymore. Next, we need to connect to the paginator or the pagination we set up within our template. And to do that, we could use the view child. Bring that in from Angular Core. And also we'll need to bring in the MatPaginator and bring that in from Angular Material Paginator. And now if you see this error, this is a TypeScript error, and TypeScript is complaining that we're not initializing this property. We could resolve this issue by adding a non-null assertion operator like this towards the end of our property. Next is the ngAfterViewInit lifecycle hook. To use this, we'll add in implements, then after, and the one you want to use is AfterViewInit. Select this one. This lifecycle hook will get called after this component or after the view is initialized. Then it will set this data source paginator to the paginator that's currently in our view. That's the only changes we need to make. Let's check our imports before we test this in the browser. So from Angular Core, you should now be bringing in the view child and the AfterViewInit. And now inside the Angular material table, you should see the mat table data source. And then the Angular material paginator, we are now bringing in the MatPaginator. Now, if we test this in the browser, it should be working. So for example, if we select 5 items, we should only see 5 items. This is a good sign. And then we should be able to navigate between our pages, and that is working as well. We can even add more configurations onto this if we want to. If we check out the Paginator documentation, and then under the examples page, or the examples tab, if you select that, there's a whole list of different configuration options we could add. For example, we could have a last page icon and a beginning page icon, and that is this configuration right here. We could find that under the code examples, or you can look for it under the API. Select the API tab, and then on the right side here, select MatPaginator default options. Select this one. And some of these you will be familiar with, like page size, for example. Page size options. We already used those. But the one we'll add is show first and last buttons. Let's add this to our pagination. Back inside the HTML, inside of the MatPaginator, I'll add towards the beginning another configuration, the show first last button configuration. Now if we save this, we should see those buttons within our paginator. And now we should have a last page icon, and we do, and a beginning page icon. And then if we go down to 5 items and then select last page, that works, and then first page, that works. Now that we added some pagination to our table, let's add some sorting to our table, and we'll do that in the next video.